the unpredictability of the world, the unpredictability of people, but there are certain things that we can predict, and some of them are include sales. Sales is either easy or difficult, depending on your mindset. To Michael Quigley, it appears to be really easy because he's got such a wonderful, mindful style. He's such an amazing listener. He's very compassionate and empathic. And I've got to believe, Michael, that's one of the real keys for your success and part of what you'll be talking about today here in the monthly global sales Globinar Global Chamber is that at the end of the day, spouting a bunch of information isn't sales, but listening and understanding what your value proposition is, and a whole bunch of other little things that seem so effortless to you, we'd love to learn. And so I know you've got some things prepared that you'd like to chat about today. I just want to start by saying we love you very much. Your book, Loving Leadership, is on my desk, and it's an extraordinary book that talks about beyond sales, how to be a better leader. It's something that I'm working on every day, and I appreciate the leadership that you have within Global Chamber that we can all learn from, not just sales, but from leadership and life. What would you like to chat about today, Michael?
Thank you very much. What an introduction. So it's an absolute pleasure to have been given this opportunity to speak to you, to be in this trusted position to help you with something so important as sales, marketing, making money, connecting with clients. So I've prepared some things for you. I've been told I've got 15 minutes. I'm pretty reliable in terms of time. So by my watch, that'll take me done at 22 minutes past. I think Doug's going to be facilitating a conversation after these 15 minutes. If there's anything you want to ask, what I've done, please feel free to ask today or to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I want to give you 3 things. I've got my notes here. Okay, so the things I'm going to help you with hopefully today can help you to supercharge your sales and make as much money as possible, possibly even today. It sounds like a big claim, but I'm doing it and I'm not special. So you can do it as well. The first thing is a sales principle. If you like to read or if you like audiobooks, check out the Trusted Advisors Field Book. Trusted Advisors Field Book by Charles H. Green and Andrew P. Howell. The whole premise of it is if you become a trusted advisor, if people come to you going, Mike, what would you think about this? What about this? You have what's called low self-orientation. If you think of the global chamber, so let's think of the universe, right? The universe revolves around the sun, not around the earth. A lot of people think that it's all about them. It's not. It's never all about you. It's always about that other person. And they'll pick up on that. So if you're high self-orientated, it's all about you. If you're low self-orientated, it's about doing the right thing for them. And it might involve you. It might involve your friend, another company. People can tell. They're not stupid. They can tell when you're trying to do the right thing by them. And they can tell when you're just trying to do something for you. All right. So it's not a case of you either do something for you or for them. It's people can pick up on your genuineness and your authenticity or lack of, right? I'm sure we've all experienced situations where people go, you're not even listening to me. But then when you get the opposite and you go, that's absolutely brilliant, that shows that person has low self-orientation. A perfect example is parents. You're orientated towards the success of your child. All right. So that's the first thing in sales. I've built a principle. Well, I've used that principle, low self-orientation. Okay. So that's the first thing. Then I want to give you a process. So I was very fortunate to learn this process when I started my business 7 years ago. And I learned it as the product ecosystem by Daniel Priestley. Daniel Priestley, he has a business called Dent, if you want to check it out. And he has a fantastic book called The Entrepreneur's Revolution. And I listened to it when I didn't know anything about business, and it was brilliant. And so I'm going to take you through the 4 steps. I call it the honeypot. It's my own take on it. The idea is that the closer you get, the sweeter it gets. That's just my little thing. But it's 4 aspects, okay? The reason that you should do this is that in terms of sales conversion meetings and stuff like that, you could be at like 80, 90% because you know where the person is on the journey with you, All right. And the reason he says you have to have an ecosystem for your sales and marketing, meaning things all live together and work together, is that if you don't, you just have something. It's like, do you want to buy this? No? Okay. There's no value proposition there beyond, do you want to buy it? No. Yes. No. All right. So the first stage, very simple, is you give a freebie. So Google search for free, right? Pretty much. You might give out a podcast or your social media, or you might have a YouTube channel. Yeah. But that's stage one. The person doesn't know you, never met you before, never even checked you out on LinkedIn, Google, anything. First stage, you give a gift. Yeah. It could just be like Doug was saying, you listen to that person. What do you want back from me? Nothing. Just want to have a listen, right? Again, it's authentic because you're not trying to do something transactionally. If I do this for you, you'll do this for me. That has its place, but people want to move beyond that in business now. And you can see it with things like subscription models, yeah, and retainer systems. So that's your first stage, right? So you give the person a freebie and make it really good. I heard a fantastic quote last month. This guy said, make your free stuff better than most people's paid stuff. That's the standard. I love that, you know. So you're giving something of high value. You don't want anything back. Okay, stage two, second stage. It's called product for prospects. So what does that mean? It means, okay, that person's checked you out on LinkedIn, or they've commented on your post, or they might have listened to your podcast, you know, or liked some of your videos, maybe even shared them. Yeah, they're at the next stage. They're saying, I like you. I kind of like your style. I like what you're all about. So then you could say to them, okay, well, do you want to have a little bit more value in exchange for a little something? So I've got some examples. You might create an ebook or even a book. I give one of my books away for free in digital form. You might have a PDF or a white paper. That's a really good way to show your expertise. You might have members content on YouTube. You might have heard of something called, what do they call it? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are members things you can get on YouTube. You might also have email subscriptions. I've started doing that recently, email marketing. I said to people, hey, if you want to subscribe to my emails, I'll send you an inspirational one every Friday. All I need is your email address. And I'll also give you 3 free gifts. People like that because they're starting to get to know you. They maybe don't trust you yet, but they're like, I like this person, or I like this brand, or I like this company. I like what they're doing. And I am willing to subscribe. I am willing to exchange an email address. No money at this stage. It might also be you do a webinar. So things like this are really good because hopefully you're getting value from it. Yeah. But you're willing to give an hour of your time. It's a fair exchange. The good thing about it is people go on this journey with you. Yeah. And they're empowered to get off at any point because you're not a good fit for everybody. And that's really important to understand. You're not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. Some people say you're too informal. Right? Some people want it to be a bit more like this. Fine. Go somewhere else. That's okay. So people often say to me at this point, that's a lot of work and I'm not getting paid. Yeah, it is. But you're building trust. I joined the Global Chamber 4 years ago, I think it was. And the first question, I love it. Doug said, how are you going to help the global tribe? I said, love that. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help. So right from the start, I understood that. The good news about it, though, is once you get to stage 3, you tend to not go back with people because they start to really like you. Okay, or they like your services, they like your brand, they like your products. So you've done your freebie. Yeah. You've got your product for prospects. You've got somebody's email address or something like that. Or you've done a webinar. What do you do then? Then they're ready for your core product. And that's where you get paid, usually very good money. And when I learned from Daniel Priestley, he said, never discount at this point because you've done a lot of free stuff. You've shown goodwill. You've given them really high quality value all the way. So they're getting ready to be wowed by you and they're ready to pay for it. And that's absolutely essential. Yeah. And it's beautiful when you get to that stage because you know it's the right thing to do, as opposed to what some people do, which is just they try and jump in at stage 3, buy my stuff. No, maybe they'll buy off you once, you know. So once you've got the core product and they've enjoyed that, the good news is the next stage, it doesn't end there. And this, I've got my notes here. The value added stage. This is one of my favorite stages. I've got some examples. So by that point, maybe they've signed up to your coaching for 3 months and you've got them all their goals achieved and they absolutely love you. They've done your testimony on LinkedIn, Google. They think you're great. Well, that's when you then have a meeting with them, or it could be with a boss, or you reach out to them in email and you said, well, great. Is there anything more we can help you with? And that's where the pertinent questions come in because you really know these people by this point. So, for example, one of my clients are in Global Chamber, Russell Bedford International, fantastic firm, accountant networking group. And I was speaking to CEO and he said, we love our LATAM members and our Spanish speaking members. was like, it'd be great to do something for them. Yeah, but you don't speak Spanish. That's true. I could learn. And he's like, well, good luck. 3 years on, I've done 2 webinars in Spanish, and I'm going to do more this year. I've had a lesson every single week in Spanish, and it's one of the best parts of my life. Opens my business up to 500 million people. That's a lot of potential customers. It's not selfish or selfless. It's symbiosis. It works together. It's brilliant. So at this point, the value added stage, the trust is sky high. They know, like we said before, low self orientation, you're just trying to do the right thing for them, and they trust you. All right. So again, I've had meetings. I had a guy say to me after a year of working together, I had the next, the value added stage. He said, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me stop you there. You're not selling to us. Remember, I was like, whoa. He went, no, Mike, you don't understand. You're a trusted advisor. You're never going to have to sell to us. That was his language, right? What he meant was we're at value added stage. Yeah. And this is where you can cross pollinate with other services, other products. It's a perfect time to say, well, if you're like me, you need to meet my mate Doug because he's amazing. Really? Yeah. Yeah. So at that stage, that's where the highest value comes. It's often where the best projects come. And things that you thought maybe are one-off, if you have this process, you start to realize that there's a stability there and people like you and they trust you. It's why you often buy the same brand when you go to the supermarket, even if the other one's a little bit cheaper. You're like, nah, I'll stay with that one. In a time of global and political uncertainty and instability, massive change and upheaval and opportunity, people want to feel safe around people they can trust. And if it's you and your products and your services, you are doing them a service, as long as you're doing it low self-orientation. All right. That's where the ethics come into this. Please don't manipulate people. And then the third thing I want to give you, so I'll come back to that. Just as a side note, I've written about Global Chamber. If you can get a warmed up introduction through email or through a WhatsApp message or whatever, yeah. So say Douglas, Cesar, Katie, if somebody introduces you somebody, and they're coming in on that level, yeah. You don't have to do stage 1 and 2. You can jump in at 3. I've had that. I've had people give me work. I come in on stage 3 because they know about my 1 and 2. So this is the beauty of it. You can have people who are not your customers and you take them on stage 1 and 2 and they love you and they give you customers. And you're like, thank you very much. We're a great fit. Or they try and you're like, not quite a good fit because for these reasons, I'm very sorry. Can I educate you better? Yeah, sorry. You try again. So that's why referrals are amazing, because you can leverage other people's networks and you don't have to spend any time or money. I personally try and make as many digital assets as I can, podcasts, blogs, articles. They speak on your behalf, as Daniel Priestley said. You don't have to have meetings with people. Copy, paste, have a listen to this podcast. I think you'd like it. It's a very good use of your time. So the final thing I wanted to give you before my time's up in 4 minutes is something I did only last week that worked really well. So you might have people who are in your professional network, maybe they're part of the global chamber, local chamber of commerce, something like that. And you really like them and you want to get them work. You're at that point where you know them, you like them, you trust them, you think they're great, but you just, you can't quite get them that over the line. So the money's in the bank account. What do? So it's something called referral generation meetings. You sit in a meeting online with the friend and you try and do the activities together. So I'll give you an example. I've sat with my friend who's a lawyer. I know exactly who he wants to speak to. But the beauty of this is he's live with me. So I open LinkedIn or WhatsApp or email, and I'm like, what do you want me to say? And he's like, don't use the word company, use the word firm. Sorry. So he's getting me introducing him to companies in exactly the wording that he wants. Because if he didn't, if I wasn't with him there, I'd do it in the way that suits me. And I'm not a lawyer, right? And so the chances of him getting that work coming in on stage 3, pretty low. So what were the results? We got 4 introductions for each other within 24 hours. I'd say that's pretty good. 3 for him, 1 for me. Okay. So they are referral generation meetings, but they can only work when you absolutely trust that person. I'm talking people for years, people who maybe use their services, because caveat, if they do something wrong, that's on you. I've only been stung with that a couple of times. But again, people say, look, Mike, I know you're trying to do the right thing, but that guy wasn't as reliable as you said it was. I'm sorry. It happens. It happens. And that's why the low self-orientation I said at the start is so important. Because if people know you're just trying to do right by them, by introducing them to people, products, services, opening doors, even if you get it wrong, you've got some credit in the bank and they'll go, that's okay. But if it's, a lot more transactional, they don't know you. One of the worst ones is when I get people trying to sell me stuff who I don't know on behalf of people I don't know. You don't know me, but you need to meet Steve. No, I don't. I really don't. So what you've got there from kind of like really short snippet, you've got a sales principle, which is low self-orientation, high confidence, but we're here to do the right thing via you. And you've got to really mean that. Otherwise it appears fake, right? This low self-orientation, everybody relaxes. You can visually see them sometimes go, okay, right, okay, I'm open to talking now. You've got your sales process, what I call the honeypot, your freebie, your product for prospects, your core offering, and then your value added, and you go around the cycle again and again, cross-pollinate. It's a beautiful way of doing business. I absolutely love it. And then you got your sales activity. That's like quite an advanced sales activity, to be fair. Referral generation meetings, but it's pretty much just getting somebody you know, like, and trust, trying to create opportunities. And the golden thing is the language of it. Yeah, you're really good at what you do, but you don't need to be really good at what the other person does. You just need to know how to say it in language that will connect people well. Final thing I wanted to do, just if you're interested for further study, people that have really taught me a lot and that I'm loving learning from. In terms of personal branding, Sarah Blakely is the billionaire founder of Spanx and now Sneaks. She's an American lady. Check her Instagram out. I think she's absolutely inspirational. For example, she did a post about how she used to always go out with her girlfriends for like a long weekend. And then now she has more money. She just does it on a higher level. And there's a picture of her by the plane with her friends and 14 friends. And I was like, that's amazing. You can create that opportunity for your friends. Amazing. So that's personal branding. There's a guy called Ned Phillips. You can check him out on YouTube. We check him out on LinkedIn. Ned Phillips is English, lives in Singapore. He's a runner and he's a sales trainer. He put out an amazing YouTube free sales training video. It's an hour. It's totally free. Product for prospects. He's a clever guy. And then a final guy. Apologies if I get his name wrong. It's hard for me to pronounce. Anthony Inarino or Inario. He has something called thesalesblog.com, and he's written sales blogs, articles, and leadership things every day for like 4 years in a row. It's ridiculous. I like a lot of what he does. Some of it, not so much, but it's always really valuable. So by my watch, that takes me to 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop talking now. Doug, I'll pass to you if you have any questions or comments. And then, of course, please, anything you want to know about the way I do business, the way I train people in sales, leadership, anything, I would be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. I have one question, and then I'm going to open it up the floor. I'd like to, certainly some of the experts in the room, like Charles Bernard, I'd love to hear from and your reactions. The question I have before we open the door to all, please, and feel free to raise your hand as well, is that the first part you talked about, the low self orientation. How do you suggest people get into that mode? That seems really hard for people to do. And even some people who are good at it, you have to do probably some tricks to kind of get there. I certainly try to do that. And there's certain things I do that. How you may not have much struggle with that because you're so naturally empathetic, but how would you suggest other people get into that mode? And when they feel like they're drifting out of it, how do you get back?
That's a really good question. Thank you for the compliment. So the way I think about it, and you know this, Doug, from my book, in the first chapter, I talk about embracing paradox, and the idea that if something is bad, it can be good or it could be both. I wouldn't make the point necessarily that because I'm empathetic, I have low self-orientation. I know people are very emotional, intelligent, very manipulative. So one of the things I would recommend for any meeting, any level of speaking to somebody, is you don't just go in there because everything's a performance. This is a performance. I'm trying to be genuine, but I'm trying to present it in a way that's useful to you. Give yourself a minute to prep yourself, get yourself into that state and say, right, why am I here? Am I here for me? Am I here for them? How do I know? Just that simple question can start to really do it. Because generally speaking, when we get selfish and we focus on ourselves, we're thinking small. And even the people that think big, what I've found is when you focus on the other person and what they need, the results it will give you are a million times better than you would have thought of on your own. For example, all of the best ideas that have come from my marketing, my business, most of them have come from other people. I had a client, she said to me, I love your videos, but I don't watch them. I was like, what? She went, I'm too busy around the house doing housework. Make a podcast. Then I could listen to it. So she's giving me sales signals. Yeah. She's saying, come to me on a level upon this audio level and I'll engage. So I was like, right. And then that became food for the journey. So I didn't do it because I wanted a podcast and I thought it was a good idea. So humility is really important. The moment you think you know it all, you're done. You're done because you've capped yourself. And I used to say to people, well, you might know it in English, but do you know it in German? Do you know it in French? You know, and AI is proving that. Disruption. Yeah. If you've got yourself up here, it's going to be painful on the way down. So, in answer to your question, beforehand, you say, am I trying to do the right thing by this person? Or do you know what? Here it is. When I first started, I needed to change the way I thought about money. And this is a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, multimillionaire. And I love it because he says, when you're offered a choice, you know, is it right? Is it what's good for me? What's good for them? He says, why not have both? And I just love that dual thinking, that ability to go, can we do something that's right for me and right for you at the same time? The answer is often yes. The reason it doesn't happen is because people don't ask that question, or they ask that question too late during a meeting and then they panic and they just go into kind of like what they've always done. So it comes in a preparation beforehand. And then it's actually something I learned from you, Doug. Something that really helps me with being low self-orientation, not sitting there going, I'm a good person, I'm going to have low self-orientation. It is to empty your mind completely through meditation, through mindfulness, however you want to do it. And then what happens there is the mind is nice and calm and the opportunities present itself. It's something you taught me. You said the leader is always the bottleneck, right? And that you said a leader should have nothing in their mind. So they're always open to the opportunities and needs of the people in the moment. I don't know if you remember saying that, but I remember you saying it last year. It really affected me. So what I do now is not only do I shut up, but I shut that up. And then that creates a space. And then from that space, the best things happen. All my best results from sales meetings, all my best stuff has come from me going, let's go. Hope that answers your question.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles Bernard is brilliant as well. Charles, hi, how are you?
I'm good. I heard my voice. I was actually going into another meeting, but I never like to pass up some spare time listening to the Global Chamber. And I love Michael's talk. I've heard you before, Michael. I think we've chatted a little bit also. Great stuff. My 2 cents is that, well, first of all, our work is very aligned, I have to say.
Yep.
And when it comes to putting a lot of philosophy into practice, I think people struggle, especially leaders. And piggybacking on some stuff you said, I would just offer that when I'm leading and selling, they sort of go together. There are 4 conversations I have my ear to. There's more than 4, but these are the 4 that I find I really think is good to listen to. One is promises. We call those speech acts. So when someone makes a promise, they're actually making a promise by saying, I promise. They're calling something that wasn't in existence into existence. And I don't think salespeople do enough of that. The other conversation that I often think is lacking, and it's very powerful, and something salespeople could do more of, including myself, is make requests. And requests can either be accepted, declined, or counter-offered. I think we have this mind conversation that, oh, it's not my place to make a request, or it'll come across as pushy. But if you simplify it to, I'm asking for something, and the other person can say yes, no, or no, but how about this, is a counteroffer. And I think if we boil things down to those simple terms, we get a lot more results. And then the 2 that I think are worth calling out because they're extraordinarily damaging. And if they're not called out, they can get in the way. Well, one is extraordinarily damaging. The other is happening all the time, and it's not bad, but it doesn't produce results, and that's opinions. I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions. Like, I'm Charles Bernard, let me give you my opinion, and I think my opinion matters, and it's going to be a great opinion. And Doug's going, yeah, I'm sure you think that's great, but it's really your opinion. And then, so I think kind of keeping a check on opinionating is something leaders could help do. And then the one that is damaging, that kills culture, kills companies, makes companies go bankrupt, is gossip. You know that thing Chris said, it's total BS, right? And so we don't tell that directly to Chris. He has no opportunity to defend himself. Gossip is kind of hijacking a person behind the scenes. And so I think if leaders propagate that, or they allow that to happen, or worse, if they instigate gossip, they really don't belong in that position, in my humble opinion. So that's kind of my quick reaction to some of the stuff he said.
Thank
What
you.
do you think, Michael?
Well, I think you're brilliant.
There's
I
a-
think, and I think you're right to mention what not to do as well, because like you say, it's very easy. I even get uneasy with the phrase thought leadership, as if it's just something up there. Like you have to. I think we have to be very careful. Semantics, connotations, etymology, a word. Since I've been speaking Spanish, I've really reflected on my English. When you say something, say it like you say with intentionality. So again, I think part of that prep I was saying before for Doug, when he was saying, how do you keep that low self-orientation? You say, what am I not going to say in this conversation? Like you've just said, I'm not going to gossip. I'm not going to talk about my competitors. I'm not going to just give my opinion. Trusted advisor is not an opinion. A lot of my clients are business advisory growth firms. It's not just, what do you think, Dave? It's not like that. It's deeper than that. People want analysis. They want frameworks. They want structures. Predictions can come into it, but personal opinions, I don't think I've ever given a personal opinion. Everything I've just told you is not my personal opinion.
Yeah,
it's based on what's worked. And I think that's what I love about sales is, and people can see in my personal business without going on myself too much, is they know that I've come from nothing. They know that I didn't have an existing bank of clients. I didn't exactly take a loan. I bootstrapped the whole thing. And so what I've shared today does work because I wouldn't be here otherwise. And the good thing about it is it really does compound. So those 4 stages, they just get better and better. It will never get harder than today. It'll only get easier for you. So yeah, I just want to say that was brilliant what you said about to be aware of what you don't want to do as well.
The other aspect I thought was real nifty and tied back to what Michael said at the beginning in terms of offering something and not getting into this yes/no situation. They're going to buy or they're not. And so, Charles, when you talk about making requests, and then you talked, at least in my head, it felt like you're opening the door to other alternatives than yes/no. You're going to buy or not, and a lot of people aren't able to set it up to be able to get people to think that way, and I presume it's the questions you ask. This is a question maybe for both of you. How do you get to that stage where people get out of that yes/no situation?
Charles, do you want to go first?
sure. Yeah, a story I tell a lot, Michael and Doug and everyone listening, is I find this is something that is notorious, and if we could just minimize it, it would really make a big impact. And that is, you have a wonderful meeting with a buyer, and it's going well, and they say, you know what, send me a proposal. And I think if you don't make a request, you've just done yourself and even your company a disservice. And so what I often hear is salespeople think that's a win, that someone asked them to send them a proposal. And I think, I tend to sort of attack that and say that's not a win. In fact, if you don't come back with a request, you've inherited a lot of work. It's like, oh, thanks. I'll spend all weekend generating that proposal for you. I'll make sure I don't get any sleep, and I'll get all my team to put in extra overtime to put that $1 million proposal together, to which you're not going to respond, right? You're just going to take it and you're going to I'll email it to you and I'll never hear back from you, right? Oh, sure, I'll do that. And so I think what I would prefer is people say, thank you for the request. I'd be happy to send you a proposal. Could I make a request? And if they say yes, you say, well, can we calendar a review of that proposal? When can we talk about that proposal? And if the prospect or the buyer doesn't give you the courtesy of a response, that to me is a red flag and an indicator that maybe you got more work to do. So that to me is like a classic example of more than a yes, no, that opens, and there's kind of like lots of little proposals along the way. Michael, I don't know what you think, but that's kind of my 2 cents.
I think there's 2 aspects to it. So first of all, what Doug said about it's either a yes or a no, or it's a maybe. I think it's really important you've just said there about, there's a sales guy, an English guy I love called Andy Bounds. He calls it afters. What happens after the meeting, you know? And that could even be in the title of the meeting. So today is to supercharge your sales skills. Great. So that after the meeting, you will have more skill. It's as simple as that, right? And so I love that. It's what I call bookending. You've got the start and the end, because you will lose people in the middle. It's human attention span. When I was talking at some point, I'd have lost you. Just human attention span. So Charles is absolutely right. You'll have them at the start. It will dip in the middle. And I think it's, so to go to Charles's point, I think that's why you get people trying to be pushy, trying to get that action. But again, there's ways of doing it. So again, like an open-ended question towards the end. So how do we proceed? You know, that's open-ended. But then again, like Charles has just said, if they then say, well, send me a proposal. Something I like to do is, my dad taught me this. I'll give you the short version of it. It's like, they're there and you're there. If you go to them, you're a doormat, like Charles has just said. But if you expect them to come to you, that's arrogant and that's high orientation. So like we've just, let's meet in the middle. I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. Sounds good. By what time? Oh, yeah, I'll do that by that point. All sorted. Because what you don't want to do is give them anything to do after the meeting, because they won't do it. And you to do more, because it's like I always see with people, the moment you leave the webinar, the moment you leave the room, they're not thinking about you. And that's what low self-orientation is. I say to myself, nobody cares about you and your business, Mike. I don't mean like lack of confidence. I just mean when you have zero expectations of anybody, it really, really keeps you sharp. You know, they're not necessarily going to do the best thing by you. They might just be nice to you in the meeting. I learned a lot around. There's a really good audiobook, No Rules Rules, by the Netflix guy. And he was saying in America, Netflix is great. And they reached out to Brazil and Asia, and they didn't understand culture. People being nice to them in meetings, and it wasn't turning into money because they didn't understand. They hadn't done the homework. They hadn't done the prep. I hope that answers both aspects of what you said, and then just tied into what Charles said as well.
I love it. I was making notes. That's really cool. Yeah, afterwards. Love that.
I think, Doug, Erica's very patiently had her hand up for a long time. I think she might want to ask a question or make a comment.
Erica, you're amazing. How are you?
Thank you. Doing well. In a winter storm, I was telling Demetrius, I feel like I'm in Chicago suddenly.
Oh, wow. Where are you?
I'm in Washington, and we have 5-degree wind chill. It's crazy, icy, snowy, all kinds of things. So I apologize. My Wi-Fi is very unstable today. However, a couple of things. Charles, I want to comment that your points resonate with me very well. Thank you for making them. I agree with you on them. And Michael, you did a brilliant thing making the podcast. I cannot tell you how many times your tidbits have sat with me while I'm making dinner or cleaning up after a meal. So thank you for keeping me company in that process. And Doug, to your question, I want to add in terms of low self-orientation, what I have found is we have to be efficient with time. Obviously, that is the one thing we cannot buy more of or make more of. I have found for me that a genuine quest to learn about people has been instrumental, not so much going into it to see how that puzzle piece fits with me, as much as making a connection and seeing what I can glean from it. Because I've been surprised by people in different industries that have had something, a takeaway for me as far as sales goes, in terms of what they do, their models, who they're connected to. So having an interest in learning more about different people that are connected to you, rather than are they going to be this exact fit for me has been instrumental, because oftentimes I've gotten something additional out of it that I never intended to find. And it's just seeing how we can collaborate and finding the points of connection with people that have really opened up things for me, just my experience.
Any response, Michael?
Sorry, I just noticed a question in the chat box as well as listening to Erica's thing at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Erica is absolutely amazing because she is so curious about people and has such high value that, and she's also open to the format can change. So just a quick story on this. I went to see a guy who's millionaire mindset trainer at a property event, and he made all his money in property. And at the time, Brexit was the big concern of English people pre-COVID. And this woman said, with all these tax changes and all these, government changes, what about Brexit? And he said, you might not want to be in property anymore. And she was like, well, that's not very helpful. He said, look, this is the point. First box is who you are as a person. Second box is how you make your money. And the third box is what you do with it. He said, I don't need you to change the first bit. You don't change who you are. And you don't change what you do with your money. That middle box can be whatever you want. He said, I made all my money in property and now I do it in mindset coaching. And it's like Erica's point, no matter where she goes and what she does, because she's got that first bit solid, that second bit can change. And it's amazing to see her journey and see where, what she's doing. And I just think that freedom is very important now, because we're in a portfolio career system where the job for life is gone and people freak, if they're made redundant or if they don't get the sales target and they think, oh, I would say don't worry about it, because as long as your foundation is solid, that second bit can change. I noticed a question, Doug, from Andre in the chat, so I'm happy to respond to it if you want me to.
Okay. Yeah, great. I don't.
No, it's fine.
I'm not sure where he's coming from, so I'd love to learn more. What do you think, Michael?
So it comes to both me and Charles. So I'll go first if Charles wants some thinking time. So he says, his question is, what would you say in terms of advice for businesses that cannot rely on repeat clients? Would there be a change in approach to the 4 steps? So I've got 4 things for you. The first is you might want to, so don't change your business model. I'm not saying that. You might want to consider having some form of subscriber, whatever that is, whether that's through email database or what's now called retainer model. So just think of Netflix. I work a lot with accountants and people like that, and their whole kind of time for money thing is changing now, and they're moving towards a subscription model and a retainer model. You might want to think, could you set that up? Because if you've got something like, like a divorce, you work with divorces or property, it's a one and done, hopefully. Could there be a retainer model around that, where you've got ways of giving value and receiving money for that on a retainer? But retainers are the future, 100%. Next thing is, I would double down on the amount of influencers, introducers you've got, people who can get you to that thing. So if you've only got, the one sale and you're on to the next customer, people who knows your next customer, before you do. So get all your team around you. There's people that know you haven't got that repeat model. So you need quite a lot of volume coming through there. The reason I do a lot in leadership and B2B, it's also very smart from a business point of view. If you get in with a business owner, they might have influence over thousands of people. That's a very smart way to leverage your time. So you can do the same with introducers and referrers both ways. And the final thing I'd add is, when you've successfully done work for your clients or your customers, leverage social media, get testimonials, get Google reviews, get, slap it all over LinkedIn and stuff like that, because that could be bringing in your next clients. People are looking at that stuff all the way. A quick stat for you. Rough stat is 90% of people online are what they call lurkers. They don't like, they don't comment, they don't share, but they are seeing what you're posting. They are seeing what you're doing. 9% of people will interact, they'll comment, they'll share, they'll whatever. 1% are actually making content. And I know this is definitely true. I've had people say, I've seen your videos. I had no way of knowing that. So leveraging social media, and don't get too obsessed with the vanity metrics of how many likes and posts it got, because as long as it's good material, say how you helped a client or something like that, it's definitely working in your favor, and play the long game. So those are just some things I wanted to jump on with it. I'll pass over to Charles if he wants to add his thoughts as well.
Charles had to go close a deal, actually. He left the message, so he stepped out. Andre, did that address your question?
Yeah.
Are there any other aspects of that question that you'd like to have covered?
It's a very interesting point, so thank you very much. so the business, so I was thinking mine, which is commercial litigation, legal practice, which is the classic scenario of, you know, if your client comes back to you more than once, then they're clearly doing something wrong, perhaps. And so I just wanted to raise that, and I think that was very, very helpful. So thank you very much, Michael, for your comments.
No, you're welcome. And
Yeah.
just to add to it, Andre, you're absolutely right. I've got a friend who's an employment lawyer. I know conveyancers, different types of solicitors and lawyers, and they are the best referral partners. You know, I got a friend who doesn't do litigation. Great. She doesn't want to do that. Can you pass each other work? It works all the time. It's one of the best ways I've found people, when they don't have a repeat model, can get their next thing. Because you'll probably get this, people asking you family law and stuff, and you're like, we don't really do that. Pass it on to that next person. So you're already on to a winner.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Business brokering, seen a little bit of how that works, is also, I think, one of those same ones, right? Where you've got, you know, people sell their business maybe once in their lifetime, and you somehow kind of need to be around them when they actually make the decision, but then it's one and done typically. So thank you. I wanted to mention, because Crystal is in the call, tomorrow we started a monthly marketing conversation similar to what we've been doing in sales here for quite a while. And so tomorrow with Meg Seitz, and Crystal will be one of the guests, we'll be talking about marketing. And so Michael, I'm wondering, how do you think about marketing? Isn't a lot of what you've talked about marketing? And where is the line, or is it important to know where the line is?
So I've found that the people that tend to do refreshing things or do it in different ways are very ignorant, and so they don't play by the rules because they just break them. So that's literally where I've come from. I didn't realize until I got into business, this whole brother and sister marketing, sales pain. Why does it exist? They help each other. A lot of what you're right, a lot of what I said is marketing, but it's also sales. Again, it's like people that, you know, they can smell sounds and things like that. You know, some people have a mixed sound. They work together. So analogy wise, your marketing, you might do 700 little things that sets up that one big sales meeting, you know? And so you need each other. So I know not everybody can be in charge of their sales and marketing just themselves. They might be running a department and things like that. But 100% back to Charles's point about leadership, they've got to be aligned with where you're going, and knowing that every good piece of marketing helps the salesperson, and every good piece of selling helps the marketing person or team, right? To me, I've never understood the disparity. I think it's unnecessary, and I understand they are different. But so good point. I would manage your expectations. I put out quality, I hope, marketing every single week. It doesn't mean I expect something back from it every single week. You know what I mean? So marketing is more like you're going on a marathon. You're like, right, I'm out here for 2 hours. Here we go. Whereas sales might be a sprint conversation, you know, and you might have it at any point. That's the cool thing about sales. You're talking to somebody and suddenly all of a sudden they say, well, how much is it to work with you? And you're like, well, I wasn't ready for that, you know? So how much of it is sales? How much of it is marketing? I don't know. What I know is they work, as they say in Spanish, juntos, they're together all the time. And the best marketers I know, or that I've learned from, are selling, because they understand marketing is influence, sales are influence, persuasion, space, grace, all sorts of different things, you know? So to me, the reason I love the product ecosystem is because Daniel Priestley said right at the start, if you don't have an ecosystem, meaning if your marketing and sales aren't working beautifully together, you just have this one and done. And again, that's okay for some things, but what if it's not working? You know, what if you're going into a sales meeting and it's just cold, and you're not getting conversions, you're not getting signups, and you start to feel bad about yourself and you feel like you're doing something wrong. No, if you've been set up really well, some really good marketing, then you're going to be set up for success. So I'm not a big fan of anything that puts people in opposition or makes people feel bad about themselves. The best marketers and the best salespeople, they're just opening doors all the time. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So it's quite a strong, I know that's fallen into an opinion. Sorry. Yeah, I allow myself one opinion, but you know, it's towards the end. So you got to give me one.
We've got 5 or 10 minutes to go before we'll close the room. There's a few folks. Love to hear from you. Like Rhonda, you look very much in thought. And I know you've got some opinions, so feel free to interject along the way, or any of you. Frank is another person who's very wise, a Thunderbird graduate, and even though he's a high-tech AI guy and helps companies do some really amazing things, you sell too, and you're really good at it. I've seen you behave. So congratulations on what you're doing. Do either of you have any comments or questions?
I just said to Michael in the chat that he and I are both Dent people. We both learned from Daniel, and I have the cup on my desk all the time. So we come from a very similar background there. And the only other thing I'd say is I had the wonderful opportunity this morning to do exactly a lot of what Michael was saying. Somebody who reached out to me 6 months ago on LinkedIn said, "Oh, you and I need to talk to my colleague such and such." And we sat down for half an hour, and we've already got the next call set up with 2 more colleagues. And it doesn't have to be something that you have to do. It has to be taking advantage of the opportunity when it comes and putting yourself in the right place, as you said, and giving first, and then watch everything that comes back. My 2 cents on that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Rhonda.
Yeah, if
Frank,
you want
what
me
do
to
you
jump
think?
in. Yeah, very interesting. First of all, I apologize. I was stuck in a different meeting with a whole bunch of note takers, AI note takers, until I realized that you were somewhere else. So I missed your first part, Michael. It's very interesting. What I heard was in regards to giving something away, and the comments that I've received from customers very often is you're desperate. That is something I think you really need to watch out for, or, with when you come with something like that. That's my experience. But I like the way, you said, like some other ideas, such as, like a web, like a podcast or something like that. I think this is, you're not really giving something away, because when you go in, you got to watch out when you set your anchor, right? If you go in very, very low, for example, next week I have negotiations with a Pakistan company. If you go in very, very low, you're probably going to lose, right? So it depends on the culture as well. You have to really watch out the culture, negotiation tactics from the various countries. Just food for thought. What's going through my brain right now. But I really like the idea what you said. These tidbits. You're not giving anything away. Then at that point in time, no, you're making yourself more interesting. I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. I didn't mention culture on purpose, because this model is, it's a-cultural, meaning, like you've just said, you could apply the 4 steps and go where we're at. Right, we're at stage 3, so now we're going to get paid, or whatever. The point I'd make on low self-orientation is, Doug knows this as well, I'm a big believer in abundance, and I'm not bothered about limits. And you're absolutely right when you talk about desperation. People can tell, and you have to be very careful, again, culturally, depending on who you're talking to, in that they don't think free equals poor quality. I am not being paid to speak right now. Hopefully I'm not giving you poor quality. People like it. That's why I call it the honeypot. They're like, wow, the closer I get to this person or this business, the sweeter it gets, So you're absolutely right. You come in there with belief in the highest of standards. And actually, I've learned that because I've made the mistake, for example, in the past, of not asking about budgets and pricing myself way too high or way too low. You're going to make those mistakes, but you want to minimize those as much as possible. That's why I go back to the prep. The meeting itself is so short. It's all about the prep and the follow-up. And if you've got that, you can have like 60%, 80% done before you even step into an interaction with somebody. So fantastic, Frank, and really good point about culture. I deliberately didn't go into that today because obviously we've got lots of different people here, but it's a really good point to consider. Lulu, our friend from China, he's amazing on stuff like that, intercultural stuff. So reach out to him.
Yeah, by the way, if anybody in this group has experience with Pakistan, I would like to talk to you. Because it's literally my first negotiation with a Pakistan customer. So
I think Lulu can help you with that.
Is that right?
Yeah, I do. He was in Iran last year. He's all over the place. He's literally
Okay.
Moldova. He's all over the place. There's a guy called Liu.
Okay.
Connect with him on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I'm sure
Yeah.
he can.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you.
I'll also connect you with Khalid, who is becoming our new executive director for Global Chamber Orlando, and he is from Pakistan, an amazingly
Oh, very
diverse.
good.
Oh my God, what a background this guy has! But he was WhatsApping me just a few minutes ago, so I know he's around. I'll get you connected.
Wonderful. Thanks, Doug.
Michael, we're at the end of something that I'd love to last for hours. Every moment with you is a learning experience, and I feel very powerful right now. So I'd like to go for a walk and take over the world after this conversation, because you've given us some amazing tools. What would you like to say, and any final thoughts? What would you like to leave us with?
Thank you. I'm going to throw you a slight curveball, something you might not expect, and it's something to just keep you sharp. There's a book called The Pumpkin Plan, the sales book, really good. And it says you can be the quickest, the cheapest, or the highest value. Sorry, the quickest, the cheapest, highest value, that's it. But you can't be all three. It's impossible. You'll spread yourself too thin. So figure out, are you going to be the cheapest? That's fine. There's a place for that. Are you going to be the quickest to respond? There's a place for that too. Or are you going to go for the highest value? I've deliberately gone for highest value. I'm not the quickest and cheapest, because that's, to me, in the work I do, that's a race to the bottom. So it depends, yeah. But figure that out. Think about that. I'd always go for highest value. But again, it depends on you. You know, pick your way and go for it. And the reason I go for the highest value is it's not about money and time, because you always run out of time and you always run out of money. And the final thing I'd say is John O'Donoghue, one of my favorite speakers, he said, remain open to all possibilities, because the moment becomes a solid single fact, it's dead. So instead, keep it alive with all the different possibilities. Don't just get obsessed with facts. Thank you.
Brilliant. Jem or Cesar, are there any final comments that you'd like to make about things that are coming up?
Jem, go first.
Yes, I also leave in the chat a comment for you to register for our event tomorrow, the first our marketing and branding series. So guys, feel free to join, since marketing is very important to your business. So yeah, so looking forward to see all of you there. And apologies so much on the Zoom link earlier with the overlap with the Globinars. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for all your help, Jem. Thank you. Cesar, anything?
I just wanted to thank Michael. I've been working with Michael for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's been a total pleasure. And I've just connected a little with Paul. So thanks for that suggestion, Michael. Next week we have the League of Opportunities, part one on Thursday afternoon for the Americas, early morning for Asia, and then part two um early morning in the Americas and afternoon in Europe and Africa. So I always encourage members to join the League of Opportunities. We always having 5, 6 members highlighting what they're doing, talking about their industries. It's always a good opportunity to connect. So watch out for more info coming from the team in the coming days. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Global Tribe is amazing. And so, Michael, you're a great example of somebody who is just so professional and talented and giving and supportive. And, it's what at least has been my vision about what Global Chamber is and needs to be going forward. This week, yesterday, we had the first meeting of our global board led by Dr. Sanjeev Kagram, and it was moving. It's similar to today, where being surrounded by amazing people. Dr. Kagram is amazing, and he believes in Global Chamber. He believes in our vision. He wants to support us, and we put together a group of 14 leaders from around the world that are helping to drive us to the next level. So that felt historic. This feels historic, Michael, given all of the knowledge that you shared today. And next week, we have Stan Shi, who's the founder of Acer and also on the board of TSMC, and has transformed business in Asia, particularly in Taiwan. 80 years old, still giving. He has his own foundation. He'll be speaking for an hour with us next week. Bad timing for Europe and Africa, but good timing for the Americas and early morning in Asia. Not so early, but early morning. And if you get a chance to listen to that recording, I highly recommend it, because he's going to give some really great information. He's going to be interviewed by a couple of really amazing global tribers. And if you haven't read anything about the semiconductor industry, or would like more information, maybe that's a better way to say it. It's a transformative market segment, and it's one that I think we all need to understand. The book Chip Wars, I thought, was revolutionary, and just revolutionary and a revelation. Maybe I combined those two words. The future of mankind is built on technologies like that, including AI and all the things required to be able to get it to be done. Let's all stay in touch with that. So, Michael, thank you for being revolutionary and a revelation. And thanks, everybody, for joining today. Have a great rest of your Thursday and rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.